I drove a domestic car to attend a high school reunion. By the time I arrived at the hotel, most of my classmates were already there. They were all doing quite well, driving either Mercedes or BMWs, and there was even a black Rolls-Royce. As soon as I got out of the car, a female classmate whose name I couldn't remember looked at me with a face full of disdain. "Oh, isn't this our class's study committee member? How did you end up like this after graduation, still driving a domestic car?" During the meal, everyone eagerly toasted the Rolls-Royce owner, completely ignoring me. Only the class leader sat beside me with a glass of wine, offering comfort. "It's okay. Even though your car isn't as good as theirs, I believe one day you'll drive a luxury car too." The corners of my mouth lifted slightly as I softly replied, "This isn't just any ordinary domestic car. Its name is Phantom S9. If it weren't for the class leader sending me message after message, I wouldn't have had the time to attend the reunion. Out of respect for old friendships, I cancelled an important meeting and managed to free up just an hour. But to my surprise, there wasn't a single conversation about our youth at the table. It was all bragging and flattery. I didn't like the atmosphere, so I got up, ready to leave. Seeing this, the class leader immediately reached out to stop me. "Griffin, there's nothing shameful about driving a domestic car. Don't be in such a rush to leave," the class leader said. Just as I was about to reply, the same female classmate who mocked me earlier shot me a disdainful glance. Exactly. It's been so many years since we've seen each other. Don't you want to catch up with everyone? But, judging by the looks of it, it seems no one's really eager to talk to you." In the end, the female classmate burst out laughing. I looked up at her and spoke coldly, "No need. I only came this time out of respect for the class leader. In the future, don't bother inviting me to such pointless gatherings." As soon as I finished speaking, Malcolm, who was surrounded by everyone like the center of attention, suddenly stood up. "Griffin, what do you mean by that? Are you saying we're not worthy of dining with you?" Malcolm had clearly twisted the meaning of my words on purpose, but the people around didn't see it that way. "Oh, driving a cheap domestic car and still looking down on others? Before coming, I thought the top students like you were something amazing, but it turns out you're nothing special. What's the use of good grades? After graduation, you still end up as just a civil servant." A civil servant? Well, she was not entirely wrong. All public officials in the country could indeed be classified as civil servants. "Griffin, I think you're just upset because you feel ignored, and now you're making excuses to leave. People are naturally divided into different ranks. So what if your grades are great? In the end, you're still just a lowly civil servant." I just wanted to leave this place quickly, but Malcolm's comment unexpectedly stirred up collective anger. "Everyone, I truly apologize for today, but I have an important meeting to attend shortly." "Well, today's meal is on me. Feel free to eat and drink whatever you like. Just have the restaurant send me the invoice later." As I reached out to grab my coat, a seductive figure blocked my path. "Oh, acting like a big shot when you don't have the money? This meal will cost at least thousands of dollars. Can you even afford it with that measly salary of yours?" She was dressed in a fiery red dress, her lipstick just as strikingly bright. But the overwhelming scent of her perfume was unbearable and I couldn't help but sneeze several times in a row. "Griffin, what's with that look in your eyes? Don't you remember me?" I carefully studied her for a moment before shaking my head. "Sorry, I've met too many people over the past few years. I guess I'm bad at remembering faces." The truth was, I had absolutely no idea who she was. She raised an eyebrow and let out a mocking laugh, saying, "Griffin, don't play this whole hard-to-get act with me. You chased me for 3 whole years back in high school." The moment she finished speaking, a familiar image surfaced in my mind. Still, the woman in front of me was far different from how she looked in high school. I hesitated for a moment before asking cautiously, "Are you Talia?" As soon as I said her name, a triumphant look spread across her face. "So many years have passed, yet you still haven't forgotten me." Halfway through her sentence, she suddenly changed her tone. "But I need to warn you, don't get any inappropriate ideas about me. I'm engaged now and my fiancé is none other than Malcolm Fitzroy." Malcolm? The name sounded somewhat familiar. Wasn't the Rolls-Royce at the entrance his? Still, what did any of this have to do with me? There was still a large group of people waiting for me in the conference room to start the meeting. If I didn't leave soon, I was going to be late. Seeing me remain silent, Thalia lightly patted my shoulder with her manicured hand. "Civil servants don't make much money. How about you drive for my fiancé instead? I'll have him pay you $1,000 a month. That's got to be better than your measly salary." As soon as she finished speaking, the crowd burst into laughter. I couldn't understand it. Why did people like them always feel the need to humiliate others just to elevate themselves? This would be my last time attending such a class reunion. I ignored Talia's mockery and casually grabbed my coat, putting it on. "Are you done? If so, step aside. I have things to do." I had barely taken a few steps when Malcolm, who was sitting across from me, suddenly slammed his hand on the table. Immediately, a dozen or so burly men in black suits rushed into the room. I noticed the nameplates on their chests, Fitzroy Group. It was a well-known industry leader in Langston City. Malcolm downed a drink in his glass in one go, then burped. "Griffin, did I say you could leave?" I couldn't help but narrow my eyes. "My legs are attached to my body. Do I need to report to you about where I'm going?" Malcolm burst into laughter after hearing my words. "You're just a lowly civil servant. Don't you realize whose turf you're on? The whole restaurant is owned by my family. don't you think you need to report to me? Without my permission, you're not leaving through that door today. The class leader sensed the awkward atmosphere and immediately stepped in, saying a few polite words to ease the tension. Hey, both of you, calm down. We've been classmates for over a decade, no need to let something so small ruin the mood. Halfway through, the class leader suddenly turned to me. Griffin, come on, we've finally all gathered together. How can you just leave early? Come on, sit back down. Let's have a drink together and catch up properly. I knew the class leader was trying to smooth things over for me, but my time was really running out. Sorry, I know I'm ruining the mood, but I truly have something I need to take care of. There's a whole group of people in the office waiting for me to get back for a meeting. I had barely finished speaking when Malcolm slammed his glass down. Griffin, cut the act. You're just a low-level civil servant. What kind of meeting could you possibly have to attend? So you're saying a whole group of people is waiting for you? Do you really think you're some kind of leader now? I was being polite, calling you a civil servant. Without that, you're just another lousy worker. Got it? I was just about to retort when the class leader quickly grabbed my hand, whispering a plea. Griffin, I think you'd better apologize to Malcolm. The Fitzroy family is a leading enterprise here in Langston City. If you offend him, you might lose your job. Sometimes, it's better to just endure. Malcolm could make me lose my job. If I hadn't stayed sober today, I'd almost think I was drunk. Given my current rank, the only way to remove me from my position would be through a direct official order from higher authorities. No matter how wealthy the Fitzroy family might be, even if their wealth rivaled nations, they couldn't possibly have any real influence over me. I gently patted the back of the class leader's hand, signaling him not to worry. Malcolm, if your hostility toward me stems from the fact that I once had a crush on your fiancée, then let me make it clear. I have absolutely no interest in Thaliano. I suggest you focus your energy elsewhere. You and I are not the same kind of people. I had planned to use this reunion as an opportunity to clear things up and resolve the misunderstanding with Malcolm, but it turned out his mind couldn't process things that way. He stared at me with bloodshot eyes. Griffin, from the way you're talking, are you saying I picked up some kind of trash? And my fiancée is a woman even you wouldn't want? Also, what do you mean by, you and I aren't the same kind of people? Langston is full of businesses owned by my family. Who do you think you are? As soon as Malcolm finished speaking, Thalia immediately stepped forward to back him up. Griffin, what do you mean by that? Do you think I'm no longer good enough for you now? You're not leaving here today unless you explain yourself clearly. Although that was indeed what I thought, I bit back the words to save them some dignity. I don't have time to chat with you two. Tell your people to open the door. Despite Malcolm's repeated provocations, I didn't get angry. Instead, I chose to back down again and again. After all, this was a class reunion. I didn't want to ruin the mood. But just as I was about to leave, Malcolm's bodyguards seized me firmly, blocking my way. Malcolm strutted over, exuding arrogance, and slapped my face with force. You really think you're somebody now, huh? Do you even know whose name this hotel carries? Back in school, weren't you the one always tattling on people? Go ahead, make a call. I'd like to see if anyone's still willing to help you now that we're no longer in school. Clenching my teeth, I locked eyes with him. Malcolm, this is your last warning. Back in school, you were lazy and useless, always fighting or skipping class. I told the teachers for your own good. Now that you're an adult, remember to think about the consequences before you act. Malcolm's eyes scanned the room, surveying our classmates. You all heard that, right? He says I should think about the consequences. Ha ha ha. Griffin, even if I ruin you today, what are you going to do about it? Do you really think being a top student makes you a big shot? Before you step out of here, you should have checked just how much weight the Fitzroy family carries in Langston. I slowly lifted my head, holding back my anger with great effort. Malcolm, have you ever heard the saying, there's always someone bigger, someone stronger? Some people are not to be trifled with. I advise you to let go of me now, or you'll be the one regretting it later, not me.